We've heard from the schools and the retailers. And now we're going to talk with 3 food manufacturers who have found special and creative ways to make whole grains exciting and popular through positive whole grain messages for success. We've already touched on this, that consumers don't really want to hear what not to eat. They really want to hear what to eat. And that's where whole grains is such a positive message. It's not no fat, no calorie, no this, no that. It's a, yeah, get more. Get those 4 wheels on the car, not 2. So while our panelists, come on over. Come on down. Our panelists sit down. I'll do some brief introductions, but then they'll be telling you more about themselves. Our 3 panelists, starting on the end there, are Chuck Marble, CEO of Evolution Brands and Ian's Natural Foods, where they specialize in positive messages for gluten-free and allergen-free foods. And next to Chuck is Dennis Gilliam, Executive VP of Sales and Marketing for Bob's Red Mill. As if you couldn't tell looking at him, he is the walking billboard and always represents Bob's so positively. And you're all familiar with Bob's Red Mill. And Ana Rosales, who is Nutrition Manager, Region America for Barilla, a company that is pioneering innovative ways to promote whole grains with consumers in schools and even with its own employees that Anna's going to tell us about. And moderating this session is Todd Kluger, who is VP of Sales and Marketing for Lundberg Family Farms. And Todd has a passion for creating and marketing products that incorporate whole grains in the health and wellness organic food category. So I'm going to let them go at it. It will be a similar format to our other panels, where each of the panelists will have a few minutes to talk about what they're doing in their own realm, and then we'll take some questions from the moderator and from the audience. Now, the AV guys wanted Chuck in the middle because they're going to be switching over. So who's up first, guys? Do you care? Okay, Dennis, okay. You're on. All right.
Well, first I'd like to say to Sam and Melissa, I have a job application that I could make available to you today if you'd like to move to Portland, Oregon. Such enthusiasm. It was amazing, and such passion. All right, why positive messages sell? I have a life premise that goes like this. Nothing happens until you put yourself out there. Several have spoken in the last couple of days about putting yourself out there. Peter certainly puts himself out there as he publishes book after book to rave reviews. Many of you put yourself out there in a variety of ways. But it occurs to me that we have a real challenge as we leave here. Not only do we have to put ourselves out there, but we have to convince the public and the consumers to come and find us and try us and make changes in their eating lifestyles. So how is it that we're supposed to take these messages to consumers? And as I pose that question, I'd like to show you how we at Bob's Red Mill approach this. In the beginning, we approach it with a great deal, or we attempt to approach it with a great deal of authenticity. I'll have to let you be the judge of that. Similar to Rick back there and running the computer, not a single glitch in 3 days. I don't know as I can say the same for Bob's Red Mill, but I would like to be able to. Rick is authentic. We try to be authentic. Authentic to us means sourcing, milling, testing, packaging, all whole grains as flours, cereals, and mixes, presenting them in the simplest possible packaging. In so doing, it creates what we feel is an evident truth. That's truth, maybe it doesn't even need to be spoken, but that truth is whole grain foods are as close to the farmer as you can get without wearing your field boots to the farm. And we believe that to be true. So let me show you how we go about doing that. I'd like to show you 2 of our 30-second commercials that will be, one of them has been airing in 2014, the other, they'll both be airing in 2015 in 12 major markets in the US and Canada. Here's what we're doing.
Pretty amazing. Treat nature with respect and she'll return the favor. Like these little beauties here, the whole grain. Most modern production pulverizes and stripping away a lot of the healthiest parts. At Bob's Red Mill, we keep it whole. We grind it slowly on old stone mills for that complete power pack of iron, fiber, and nutrition. Nature has it pretty well figured out. We just need to get out of the way. I'm Bob Moore, and that's me on the package.
Now, to our friends at Big Y and other retailers, I would say this is one of the ways we drive consumers to your stores. All right, now number 2.
On a scale of 1 to 10, this little beauty is an 11, the whole grain, one of nature's most perfect creations. It has 3 parts, the germ, the bran, and the endosperm. Together, they're a one-of-a-kind power pack of vitamins, minerals, protein, and healthy energy. You could say I put whole grains on a pedestal. Actually, I'm aiming for every table and for every meal of the day. I'm Bob Moore, and that's me on the package.
All right, that's a couple of the ways we'll be out there, putting ourselves out there. So how else do we put ourselves out there? Well, take a look at this. In 2009, we made our first trip to Carbridge, Scotland. We entered the World Porridge Making Championship called the Golden Spurtle. That's my marketing director, Matt Cox. He won the Golden Spurtle in our first attempt, and I have to tell you, we used our steel-cut oats. And a month after we won the Golden Spurtle, and of course talked about it quite vigorously, our sales of steel-cut oats doubled, and they have never gone back. So it's this messaging, getting to the public with the message. It really works, these positive messages. So look who the competitor was just a few weeks ago. Yo, what do you know? I took a crack at it this year. I was our chef competitor at the Golden Spurtle. I still say I had the best specialty recipe in the house, but I was up against some pretty stiff competition. The judges saw it differently. So someone else walked away with the specialty title this year. However, I did notice that many of the Scottish hotel chefs who were competing against me made a distinct point of walking out with my recipe. So, which, by the way, you can find on our website. It's called Morning Glory Oats. It's amazing. All right, what else are we doing? All right, last year we took a media tour to Manhattan. We took 9 of Portland, Oregon's premier chefs. Several of them have been featured recently in the Wall Street Journal. And we put on a roadshow like, honestly, like New York had never seen in the food world. We invited magazines, and each of these chefs took one of our whole grains that we call grains of discovery and developed a recipe around it. Invited the chefs. We had about, the magazine people. We had about 200 people at our event. Bob got in to see Martha Stewart. I mean, it just went on and on and on, the successes that rolled out of this event that we put on in New York. We have another roadshow in New York coming up in May. Okay, what in the world is going on here? Well, this is our founders, Bob and Charlie Moore. They're so active in the community, so active with philanthropy. The reason these people are throwing their hats in the air is because Bob and Charlie have just made a major, significant, multi-million-dollar donation to the Oregon Health Sciences University. And for very good reason. Our founders donated to promote the research established results. Now, these are research established results that I'm going to be talking about, that all disease can be prevented by proper nutrition of the mother prior to and during pregnancy. Amazing discoveries that are out there waiting to be passed on to the public. But the people at OHSU don't necessarily know how to get those research proven findings out to the public. So we've joined forces with them and with Oregon State University and with the National College of Natural Medicine to try to get these messages out to the public. Positive messaging goes on constantly at Bob's Red Mill. Oh boy, is this fun for me. I know, well, I'm not positive, but I have a good reason to believe I'm the only person who has a corn sheller in his office to where buyers from Whole Foods or if we have the pleasure of having Big Y come out, the first stop on your tour will be my office. And whoever would like to takes an ear of dried corn, runs it through the corn sheller to see how the farmers create chicken feed. And I'm telling you, it is the best icebreaker you can imagine. And then we can talk about the benefits of whole grain corn, and we really have fun on our tours when people come to tour our plant. And that's how you get started. Okay, what's going on here? Well, I fully realize this is not a whole bean conference. This is a whole grain conference. But many of you dietitians know far better than I that beans and grains together make quite a wonderful combination nutritionally. We're aware of that at Bob's Red Mill also. This year, in early spring, we went up to Moses Lake, Washington. We contracted with these two farmers, that's a father and son, you see there. And we found an heirloom bean called the orca. It's black and white splotch, looks just like the orca whale. They dropped 49 acres of seed in the ground just for us. They harvested about a month ago. We're sitting on roughly 140,000 pounds. We're beginning to market them. They hold their color after they're cooked. They're just wonderful. If you haven't seen them yet, take a look at the package on our table. So we're positive messaging again. Combining a grain with a bean gives you an enhanced protein. And finally, our work with the public takes many facets. We sponsor bird watching programs with Cornell University Ornithology. So our goal there is to turn every bird watcher into a whole grain consumer and then in turn send them to the markets. So do I think positive messaging sells? You better believe I do. But you better be able to be the real deal before you try it or it's not going to work.
Thank you very much, Dennis. We appreciate it. Very great. I love the birds on there. All right, who's next up? Who would like to go? All right.
Great. Thank you very much. My name is Chuck Marble. I'm the CEO of Elevation Brands. We have two what we call mission-driven brands. One is Blue Horizon Wild, which is a seafood value-added products that we make in our USDA facility in Framingham, Massachusetts. And our other brand, and the brand I will be focusing on today, is Ian's, formerly known as Ian's Natural Foods. Our mission for Ian's is to be the leading provider of all-natural, allergy-friendly foods consumers can trust. And trust, the word trust you will hear time and time again throughout my little discussion here. Because if you have food allergies, obviously the food you eat, you've got to trust. And we try to do that through our messaging at Ian's. Before I get started, I'd also like to introduce Chris-Ann McCarthy. She's our registered dietitian. Chris-Ann, if you could raise your hand. And Chris-Ann keeps me out of jail. You talk about regulation, especially with our meat products. So with allergy-friendly products, and as you know, the FDA has identified the top 8, and those 8 food allergens actually only really represent about 90% of the population. Canada has an extra 2, and so we try to formulate our products that have as many of those as possible. The brand was started back in 2001, actually one of the first gluten-free brands out in the marketplace. and the focus was children. And you may also know another factoid that 1 out of 13 children today have food allergies. And the Centers of Disease Control reports that since 1997, there's been a 50% increase in children with food allergies. So we, again, are very mission-driven to create solutions for those with food allergies. And then just recently, we've incorporated the brand into more of a family-friendly brand. So not just focused on children, because of the adult onset food allergies that are taking place. And I could tell you some pretty amazing stories. In fact, one I'll share with you. My mother was diagnosed with celiac disease when she was 81 years old. For 10 years, the doctors were telling her she had irritable bowel syndrome. And finally, she ended up in the hospital, and we begged her to get tested. And sure enough, she had celiac disease. But the good news is when she told me on the phone, I rejoiced with jubilation because I could actually help her and coach her and get her through the diagnosis. So that's really what we do with Ian's. From a positive messaging, our consumer research has shown that when you're dealing with very serious messaging, as in food allergens, the consumer wants to know emphatically, can I buy this or can I not buy it? And so we say no on our package. We say no gluten, no casein, no nuts. And our research has shown that they like that. So when we were, it was about 1.5 years or so ago, we started looking at developing food service products to sell in the food service industry, whether it be restaurants, schools, K through 12, universities. Most of you are aware that the Leslie College here outside of Boston, actually the students sued the college because they were not taking care of the special dietary needs, yet they were being forced to be on the program, the meal plan at the college. So that really caused a stir from a manufacturer's standpoint to really deliver products that could satisfy special dietary needs in the university systems. So we looked at that as a great opportunity, and then Chrisanne, knocks on my door and says, "Chuck, if you want to do K through 12, there's this new regulations coming out called, whole grains," and it really, made us think about, okay, in our innovation process, how can we develop a product that's gluten-free and that has whole grains? So we did actually successfully developed a whole grain proprietary breading system using brown rice. And we were the first, to my knowledge, we're the first out with a child nutrition compliant product line to be launched in the food service industry. So then we took those learnings, and we now have 11 products with a whole grain council symbol. And so you take that negative messaging, but you throw a positive message outlining the attribute on the front of the package to let people know that, of course, our products are made with antibiotic-free chicken. They're all natural, no artificial colors, preservatives, ingredients. But now we've got this whole grain stamp that really promotes the fact that gluten-free does not have to be grain-free. And I guess that's my message today. Just a few products I want to share with you that we've also launched with our new proprietary whole grain breading system. Sriracha Fire Sticks. It's actually a chicken stick you'll find. Sprouts out in the western United States was the first retailer to take that on. Southwest Tenders and Smoke and Sweet Barbecue Chicken Nuggets. So we're pretty pleased with those introductions, and we'll continue to innovate in that whole grain avenue.
Great, Chuck. Thank you very much. Sriracha chicken sounds really good right now.
Is that available on the East Coast, Chuck?
Not yet.
Yeah, for a retail sale, not just for food service, right?
I'm going to steal this from you.
And now we have a presentation from Barilla Pasta.
Thank you. I'm Anna Rosales, and I'm the nutrition manager at Barilla. And I just want to walk you through a little bit of how we've had success with whole grains and to take you back a little bit of when we first entered the market with Barilla whole grain pasta. Let's see if I can. Yes, is this better? Okay. So a little step back in history on how we entered the market with our Barilla whole grain pasta. When we first began with Barilla whole grain, and even to this day, every step we take, we have to drive to trial. There is still this perception with consumers that whole grains don't taste good. I know all of you in this room know this isn't true, but with a lot of consumers, they're still afraid to try whole grains. So what we did to overcome this barrier of this taste misconception or this perception that is not true, we did what we called the whole grain taste challenge. And you can see that kind of on the right side is when we started the whole grain taste challenge. But the next slide, you can see that we did a 360 integrated marketing approach to launch this whole grain taste challenge. So we wanted people to experience our whole grains in their kitchen. So how are we going to get them to do this? How are we going to get them to buy this box of pasta that looks darker and is a little bit more brown than what they're used to? We said, try it. If you don't like it, contact us, and we'll give you a coupon for a free box of our regular semolina pasta. In the first 6 months of doing this promotion, we had a trial of over, I think it was 575,000 boxes of whole grain pasta. We had less than 400 people or so actually take us up on that offer of wanting to have the semolina box of pasta. That's an incredible drive to trial, and our repeat was incredibly high. Within the first year of launching our whole grain pasta, we quickly became #1 in market for whole grain pasta in the United States. But over and over, we must drive to trial to get people to try it. Once they try it, they understand it, they get it. It doesn't clump together. It tastes great. It has so many great benefits. Then they'll stick with it. But to get them there, we had to talk to a lot of different people, or talk through a lot of different people. Because for me to say something, no one's going to believe me. I'm Barilla. They're going to be like, yeah, you're a dietitian for Barilla. Of course you're going to say that. Okay, point taken. If the Food Network is telling you, try whole grain pasta, it tastes great. Everyone likes the Food Network, and everyone wants to be a foodie and to try food and to think that they have a culinary edge. So if it's coming from this different voice of this key influencer, now suddenly they're listening. Or if a blogger is giving you that peer-to-peer experience. So when we did different activities and inviting bloggers to come and to take that challenge and then to challenge their readership to take this whole grain taste challenge, then it's a little different too. Now you're hearing it from a peer. Then you're on your favorite website and a little pop-up comes saying, wait, whole grain pasta no longer tastes like cardboard. You're starting to think. And finally, you're in the point of sale and you're seeing shelf tags and things that are like, all right, it's really risk-free. I'm going to go ahead and take that lunge and try the Barilla whole grain pasta. So we really had to touch people everywhere to get them to try our Barilla whole grain pasta. And this is just to give you an example of one of those communications of how we drove people to trial. So this would be an example of if you're on a web page and it pops up on Food Network when you're searching pasta recipes. Okay, try Barilla whole grain taste challenge. It no longer looks like that first little piece of cardboard pasta. Whole grains are now delicious. And then you could go to the website and you could share your recipes and you could share, see other people's comments on recipes and get great ideas for cooking a whole grain pasta. Now, when we were entering the marketplace, we did not do a 100% whole grain pasta or whole wheat pasta. We did a 51% whole wheat pasta with the remaining being semolina or refined semolina. And a big reason for this was because there was that taste barrier or perception barrier around consumers that 100% whole grain pasta was not going to be good. So that's where we entered the market in 2008. And we had great success with this product. And I'll move on. I don't know if I press play or I think you press play. But this is just one example of a commercial we did to get people to drive to trial, and it features Ellie Krieger. So you can go ahead and play that.
Whether I'm on TV or at home, when I'm cooking a pasta dish, I prefer Barilla whole grain. It tastes great. The flavor is mild and the texture is just perfect. Another thing I love is that it's a quick cooking whole grain. So you can create a meal that's healthy and delicious in no time at all. Brought to you by Barilla. Take the Barilla Whole Grain Taste Challenge at trybarillaWholegrain.com.
So that's one way of how we got people to try whole grains. And I think this is the biggest barrier that we have, whether you're talking about a manufacturer, in the retail, or even in schools. You have to have people try it. And if you're able to overcome that and to have them experience and try it in the best light, they're gonna enjoy it. But something that people need to understand is that you can't take every recipe you have and just make it whole grain. I know, some people might be upset over that, but it's really true. If you were to take certain pasta recipes and insert whole grain, the flavor's just going to be off. You can't take certain seafood pasta recipes and then insert a whole grain pasta and expect to have the same culinary experience. So this is where having recipes and cooking tips and giving people the advice on how to make whole grains work and to love them is really important. And that's exactly what we do with schools. So now I want to share with you a little bit of what we've done to make whole grains, or to help whole grain pasta specifically, work in the school nutrition environment. And you heard a lot earlier today about the changes to school nutrition, and you heard from Chuck too that for a manufacturer, we had to make some changes to be able to have our product still in schools when the new requirements came out. So I guess it was a little over a year and a half ago or 2 years ago when we had to make these changes to our Barilla whole grain, because our normal whole grain product is 51% whole grain, the rest of it semolina, all natural. It was not enriched, the remainder of that semolina portion. With the new school guidelines, they came out saying whatever portion of your grain product is not whole grain, it must be enriched. So we had about 6 months as a manufacturer to figure out how do we have our setup, our silos, our distribution, everything function so we can still deliver a product that will work for school foods. And we were really excited that we were able to quickly make that change and to offer a product that could continue to be used in the K through 12 schools, that in a product that we know that kids love. We've heard from families over and over, from people who we've driven to trial since 2008 and are the core consumers, that their kids can't tell a difference. They enjoy it, they like it, so we knew that we needed to get this to schools. So we were able to quickly reformulate and to have a product that we could offer to schools with the new guidelines. Then some other things that we do as a manufacturer, we offer recipes on our food service website that are already tailor-made and ready for schools to go. So it gives them the breakdown of how does this fit within your meal planning, so they don't have to search and figure out how do I get a different recipe with certain numbers of vegetable in it or grain serving to the ounce equivalent and all that. We've done the math for them, and we have over 30 recipes that are ready to be made for school nutrition on our website. So if you go to BarillaFoodServiceRecipes.com, put in K through 12, those recipes will come up. And then some other things that we've done for success in schools is becoming part of the Cool School Cafe program, where schools that are buying our product get points, and then they can use these points to reimburse for different things, either equipment or other things for their school. And we are members of SNA. But even having a product that fits for schools, that's great, but still some schools that aren't as progressive as the Boston and Cambridge schools that haven't made those changes to whole grains beforehand, they're still thinking it's a really big barrier for them. They're saying, you know what, our kids, they're not gonna eat whole grain pasta, they're not gonna eat whole grains, they're just gonna throw it in the trash. And to that point, there was even some pushback, obviously, on the regulations. And at Barilla, we said, you know, that's just not the case. We have a lot of schools that are successfully using whole grains. Their kids are liking it, they're tasting it, they're trying it, and they're not putting it in the trash. And it's working for their different environments. So this is one other thing that we had to do, kind of drive to trial in food service. So instead of trying to get it in people's homes and in their kitchens, now we have to get it into the schools and to have the schools trust us that you can make whole grain pasta work. So we had a lot of the school districts that have had great success give us testimonials and to share their success so that we can then say, look, it's happening, it's working in Cambridge and Boston, it's working all over the country, you can do it. But you need to kind of figure out how to do it. Because as you saw, each school district and each location, they have a different setup. Some of them are cooking on spot, some of them have steam jacket kettles, some of them are doing a pot on a stove. But if we have one cooking direction on our package, they're lost. They don't know what to do if they don't have the equipment that you're saying to do. So we recognize this need for not only having testimonials to say that it can work, but for giving schools the information that they need to make it work in their environment. So we took it one step further, and we took our chef in a food service to go to a school district in the Chicago area, and he went and he made our whole grain pasta on, like, I think it was 5 or 6 different methods with all the different equipment that was available for this school district to come up with best practices of how do you cook, how do you hold, how do you serve this type of pasta in the school environment. And we put these recommendations together, and we've shared it now with the USDA, and we're hoping to have by next year a joint publication with them to take these best practices and to share it with schools on how can you make whole grain pasta work. So that's one other thing that we've done to drive to trial, and then to give the expertise to the schools on how they can make it work. So we've done a lot with our product, but we've taken it one step further at Barilla, between just our Barilla whole grain pasta, getting it in and supporting it in the retail market and in food service with schools. And we've said, you know what, we want to make sure our employees are getting whole grains. And how can we get our employees to try more whole grains? Well, in Italy and across the world with Barilla, we have a program called Si Mediterraneo, which is our nutrition education program for our employees. And at many of our locations, we have a canteen or a cafeteria on site that all of the employees are eating at. In a lot of our European locations, it's included as part of their benefits package to have a healthy, delicious meal for about $1 a day. So almost all of our employees in these locations are eating there. And we did a survey to see how many are eating whole grains. Are they eating the Mediterranean diet, even when they're located in the Mediterranean? And at first, we found out no, they're not. They're not eating whole grains, they're eating prosciutto, they're eating French fries. And we thought, wow, why? Like, we can change this. They're eating here every day. So we did a big education initiative, and we also overhauled a bit of our cafeterias and canteens. We made some basic changes on the offering of things, making whole grain bread first in line. So you're already in the queue to get lunch, and the white bread is a little bit further away, you're gonna take the first one that's available. We made it where whole grain pasta was served every day. We shifted where the prosciutto was located, so you had to ask for it. You know, we made legumes and whole grain salads available every day too. And so these are just some of the basic principles that we did. And surprise, this is the guidelines of what we had in our canteen locations. So having whole grains available every day was something that was a big shift. You'd think that having whole grain pasta would be kind of a normal thing. At least as American thinking about Italy, I would think, yes, of course they'd eat whole grain pasta, but not so much. There's a perception amongst a lot of our employees in our Italian locations that whole grains and whole grain pasta that's the old way. Like, that's what my grandma did, but no, we don't do it anymore. And so again, it was almost like this drive to trial with our own employees to show them that whole grains can taste great, and your grandma did it for a reason, because it's good tasting and it's good for you too. So once we implemented these guidelines, and of course had to negotiate with our labor unions to have French fries only 2 times a week, we saw some great changes. And we saw that whole grain pasta meals doubled. And this is at our headquarters location that these results are at. And at our headquarter location, it's really interesting because we have 2 canteens, one where many of the employees from the factory go to, just because it's located next to the factory, and then another canteen that's located to the office building. So it was really interesting to see that even the different populations going to the 2 different canteens had very similar positive changes. So whole grains doubled, and then whole grain bread increased 49%. Now, this is not really rocket science what we did. We just offered it. So it's just like in schools. If you don't offer it and you don't give them the chance, of course you're going to think they're not going to like it. They're not going to take it. We just made it available every day, and it doubled the intake. It's amazing. We put whole grain bread before the white bread. Not rocket science. It went up 49%. We did the same thing after we had such great success at our headquarters, and we've now implemented this in 7 countries and over 10, 15 different canteens that we have. And we did this at a different location in the south of Italy at one of our factories, and we had the same results. We had, after 2 months of pasta, it went up 50% whole grain. Same thing with bread. So small changes, giving people the benefit of the doubt, giving them the education and the opportunity to try it, it makes a big difference. So when we had these really positive results in Italy and across other regions, at Barilla, we are a family-owned company, and we were sharing these results at one of our nutrition meetings with the Barilla family. And I remember very distinctly about 2 years ago, Guido Barilla heard these results, and he looked right at me, and he goes, "Those are wonderful results. What are you going to do in America?" I'm like, "Oh, great." So I looked back at him and I said, "I don't know. What are we going to do? We don't have a canteen." He's like, "You can do something." So what did we do? We now offer free lunch to our employees at our headquarters office every Tuesday. And we have what we call Share the Table Tuesdays, where our employees take a break and they come experience a Mediterranean-style meal, most of the time based around whole grains. And we take this opportunity to also educate them on whole grains. So in our headquarters, we have kind of an open cafe. It doesn't have a food service operation there, but we bring in a catered lunch every Tuesday. And we share with them different whole grain recipes and let them try our whole grain pasta and our different products to make sure that they're experiencing not only our products, but the Mediterranean diet, and then giving them the opportunity to then go and repeat this at home with the recipes and nutrition information. So we've had great success not only in the marketplace, but even driving to trial our own employees to get them to trying whole grains, and then in the end, improving their diets overall. So what's next in whole grains for Barilla? Well, since 2008, people have come to know, trust us, our quality, our taste, our performance, and we will be transitioning to a 100% whole wheat, whole grain product in 2015. We've done a lot of testing around this, and it's performed at parity or better than our 51% whole grain. So we're excited to take kind of that stepped approach, that we start with 51%. We get you to get consumers and people to try it, to experience it, to know that our product is great. And then we can then step it up to 100%, where they can have that added nutrition and health benefit and understand that we're going to deliver a product that they can trust. So we're excited for the next generation of whole grain with Barilla. And grazie.
Thank you very much. Wow, we are already short on time. We're getting to the break. So are there any questions from the audience? I'll put my questions aside so you guys can have yours.
Actually, it's to you and to other people who are using brown rice. About a year ago, maybe a little longer than that, it was a big issue about arsenic in brown rice. And I haven't heard much about it lately. I'm not sure it's actually a real health problem, except in places where they have wells drilled in arsenic-rich rock. But so what's going on? Have you felt, I know Lundberg did a great job of trying to explain what's going on with that. And I'm wondering, what's going on now as far as the issue? Are you still getting calls? Are you still worried about that?
Well, thank you so much for that question. I'm the moderator. I'm supposed to get these questions. Okay, we'll do it really fast. Sorry, guys. For those of you who didn't know, arsenic is uptook. Rice uptakes arsenic. Doesn't matter where it's grown in the world. When the hull of rice is being formed, it scavenges for silicon. If it can't find silicon, it's going to move on the periodic table, right or left, and it's going to grab arsenic because it's an essential element. And it will bring arsenic up into the plant, and it will convert it to silicon to make the hull. The problem is it keeps uptaking it once it's finished making its hull. There's what's called organic arsenic and inorganic arsenic. And even though it sounds like with organic arsenic, it must be organic, it's healthy for you. No, it's not that type of organic. It means that it's naturally occurring. It comes from granite. So if you have beautiful mountains and a floodplain, the floodplain is where rice grows. The beautiful mountains are made of granite, it rains, arsenic flows its way down into the muddy fields, and the rice can uptake it. Inorganic, it's being placed there because it was a heavy fertilizer, cotton production in the US, and very heavily used in other parts of the world as a pesticide still to this day. So there's research studies that come out every couple of years showing that there's arsenic in, pick something. It's heavy in chicken, it's heavy in wheat, it's heavy in rice. But because it's in rice, and rice is a infant food, there's a big concern there. So we were approached a couple of years ago by the FDA and by Consumer Reports saying they were going to release some research from a Dartmouth study on arsenic. And would we be willing to work with them? As someone running marketing, that's always a tough thing to do, to say, yes, we're going to work with you on something that could be very, very negative for the brand, negative for the industry overall. But if we don't do this, then we're just like everybody else who's digging a hole, putting our head in the sand, and hoping it all goes away. Because when we looked at the research that arsenic was being talked about in the past, people just ignored it, thinking it's going to blow over, which your question is probably connected to that. It seems like it's blown over, but it hasn't. The FDA is working with quite a few companies right now because, again, this is more than just rice. It exists in beer. Every glass of beer you have has arsenic in it, from the water and from the hops and from the wheat and from the barley and from the rice, because there's rice beer too. There have not been good enough long-term eating studies on it, and so we've been working with different universities for those eating studies. We're looking at countries that are heavy in rice consumption and have heavy inorganic arsenic that are coming from fertilizer and pesticides to study cancer rates and reproductive health rates is a big issue. So you'll probably be hearing more information about that coming up in the next 6 months or so. Some information and research coming out on reproductive health rates connected to inorganic arsenic, not organic arsenic. We test our rice and we post it on our website, the arsenic load that it may or may not have. And we invite our consumers to come along with us on the journey because we don't know how this is working either. And instead of telling the consumers to go away, don't worry about it, just eat the product, we want them to come with us on the journey to educate themselves, as we are too, and not be fear-based. At the very worst, there may be some sort of warning in the future about consuming rice during pregnancy, but we don't know about that yet. The FDA is going to be researching and releasing some information on that. Thank you. Thanks for that question. No more follow-up questions on arsenic.
I have a less heavy question. It's for Anna. On our shelves, Barilla, you have a white fiber pasta. Could you tell me, is this a new type of wheat? What is it?
Okay, so her question is around Barilla white fiber pasta. Barilla white fiber pasta is not a new type of wheat. It is a pasta that we developed in kind of the name of stealth health. So for those consumers who have, or families particularly, who have picky eaters, so those families that the kid can really distinguish any slight color difference in their pasta, we said, okay, we get that you need a white pasta that also has health and nutrition benefits, so we came up with our white fiber. White fiber is made primarily with semolina. It does have 8 grams of whole grain per serving, so a small amount of whole grain in there. And we use a resistant starch to add in the fiber, so that's where the fiber is coming from. And our Barilla white fiber gives a fiber benefit that is the equivalent fiber as our whole grain, so it has 6 grams of fiber per serving, but it has a white look and color to it. So for that whole grain hesitant person that does, or family that isn't willing to quite make the step to a 51% or a 100% product, that's why we developed the white fiber, to give them that option.
Oh, one last question sneaking in before I could get up. Go for it.
Sorry, on the same similar note, I'm a supermarket dietitian, so excited to see some national brands now making gluten-free pastas, so they're more for the price-conscious customer. But will we start to see some more whole grain, gluten-free national brands of pasta come out?
Well, considering we're the main and only national brand of pasta, I guess that's directed at me. Great question. So we're always evaluating the market and what the need is. And to be 100% honest, at this time, we have not announced and don't have in our product pipeline a whole grain gluten-free. We just launched gluten-free at all last year. And as the dietitian at Barilla, I was on the gluten-free project, and I also often get questions on why didn't you do whole grain, or why didn't you do this grain or that grain with your gluten-free product. And the truth is we tested. We tested whole grain gluten-free, we tested our obviously our current formula of gluten-free and many others, and resoundingly consumers didn't want a gluten-free pasta that was whole grain at the time. They wanted a gluten-free pasta that tasted, that looked, and performed like regular pasta, because there wasn't one out there that they were satisfied with at the time. So our entry into the gluten-free market was not whole grain for that reason, because there was a need for having a pasta that tasted and performed like traditional Italian semolina pasta. I'd say that I really hope that it's in our future, and it's something that's close to my heart, so I'm always pushing for it, but it's currently not there.
Great. Thank you very much to a wonderful panel. Great panels all morning.